I didn't think much of it at all at first. We all do it. Walk into a room and completely forget why we came in. It's normal. The scientific explanation is that doorways act as an event boundary in our minds. Crossing a threshold makes our brains file away the previous room's thoughts. At least, that's what I believed until 3 weeks ago. It started with small things. I'd walk into the kitchen for a glass of water, and to forget why I was there, and to only notice the mug I was holding had seemingly changed colour. Or I'd enter the bathroom and I'd forget my purpose, only to catch my reflection wearing a different t-shirt to the one I'm sure I'd put on that morning. I just chalked it up to stress, lack of sleep, the usual excuses. But the changes, they kept happening, always after that moment of forgetting. Last Tuesday I walked into my home office and had that familiar blank moment. When my thoughts cleared, the desk was on the opposite wall. But not just the desk, no. Everything, the entire room was mirrored. And I stood frozen, heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't just a minor detail I'd misremembered. This was impossible. So I took a photo and backed out of the room. And when I returned an hour later, the layout was back to normal. But the photo remained on my phone. Proof I wasn't losing my mind. And so I began experimenting. I'd consciously note details before entering rooms. The time on the clock, objects on tables, the exact position of furniture, and the forgetting moment. When it happened, I'd check for discrepancies. They were always there, sometimes subtle, books rearranged on shelves, different screensavers on my laptop, and sometimes more dramatic, wallpaper with patterns I'd never seen, windows where doors should be. But the most terrifying change happened yesterday. I walked into my bedroom and once more I felt that familiar mental blank. When my thoughts cleared, everything looked normal, until I noticed the family photo on my dresser. In it, I stood, beside my sister, parents, and a young man I didn't quite recognise. His arm was around my shoulders, and my sister wasn't in her wheelchair. I picked up the photo with trembling hands, and on the back written, "Family Reunion 2018, Jessica walking again." You see, Jessica had been paralysed from a car accident only a few years prior, and she'd never been able to walk again. And so I called her immediately. "Jess," I whispered when she answered. Are you in your wheelchair right now?" She laughed. "Now what kind of question is that? You know I haven't needed that thing since the experimental surgery." My blood ran cold. "What experimental surgery?" "Very funny. The one Dr. Whitmore performed? The one you convinced me to get even though I was terrified?" "Oh yeah," I chuckled as I ended the call and sank to the floor, clutching the photo. That's when I noticed the folded piece of paper that had fallen from behind it. It was a note in handwriting seemingly identical to my own. "They live in the thresholds," it read. "They watch us through doorways, and every time we cross and forget, they change something. Small things usually, but they're getting bolder. They're rewriting reality one doorway at a time. Do not trust your memories. Do not trust the doorways. And whatever you do, don't acknowledge them when you see them flickering in the corners of your eyes." As I read those words, movement caught my attention. A dark, elongated shape briefly visible in the doorframe. There and gone too quickly for me to make out clearly. But now, as I sit in my bedroom, too afraid to leave, I've pushed the dresser up against the door, and for the past hour, shadows have been gathering around the frame, pulsating and stretching towards me. My phone showing no signal, and the views from my window is of a neighbourhood that I don't recognise. I'm writing this as a warning. Those memory lapses when you cross a threshold, they aren't normal. It's not just your brain resetting. Something is using those moments to change your reality, piece by piece. And I think they know when you notice them. I hear scratching at my door now. The wood around the frame is beginning to warp, stretching inwards like black fingers prying their way in. I'm going to have to open eventually. I just hope the me on the other side remembers writing this.